Well, you wait 3 weeks for an F1 race and then 2 come along at once. Straight from the big vibes of Austin and a Ferrari 1-2, we come to Mexico City, where the fight for both titles is set to intensify, and all eyes are on home hero, Sergio Perez. In front of some of the most passionate fans in our sport, we're expecting high excitement at the highest of altitude. Welcome to weekend warm-up here in Mexico City. It's round 20 of 24 in the F1 World Championship, and Max Verstappen leads Lando Norris by 57 points in the driver standings, and courtesy of that Ferrari 1-2 last time out in Austin, they're now just 8 points behind Red Bull, with McLaren leading the way in the fight for the Constructors' title by 40 points. Joining me for this one, Lawrence Barretto and James Hinchcliffe. I didn't get my taco order in. Guys, how are we doing? Okay, while I get these two in order, here's what happened last time out in Austin.
From the Circuit of the Americas, it is time for the main event. This is going to be some Grand Prix. There's the late lunge that Max Verstappen was looking for, but he sends Lando Norris wide, and through goes Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton's miserable weekend continues. What commitment that is! Lawson powers ahead.
I can't brake, I can't attack anything.
Let's see how you do under pressure.
Lando Norris on the attack.
10 out of 10 pressure on Verstappen right now.
This is as big as it gets.
Here we go again. Can Verstappen hang on to it? They both go off the road.
Oh, they took me outside the track.
We are running Max.
Lando Norris has a penalty.
I should have just gone back behind him, shouldn't I?
But Sunday is all about Charles. Another masterclass from Ferrari's favourite son.
That's my boy. Another win.
Let's go home.
Welcome to a truly unique paddock with so many beautiful quirks and cultural traditions. For those who may want to adjust their television sets, no, we are not in Vegas, and I'm not having another panic attack, although we are close to that. Thank you very much for joining the top of our show. Pleasure. Lawrence Barretto, James Hinchcliffe. He does. How are you both doing? We obviously didn't hear from you earlier. While my heart rate returns to normal, can somebody speak?
No, I'm great. Look, there's no denying when you come to this Grand Prix, you know you're in Mexico. Here we're at the Margarita Bar, there's taco stands behind us. Mexico does this Grand Prix so well. I'm so glad to be back.
James, how are you?
I'm loving it. I mean, I've always said this is one of my favorite events. Are you allowed to have favorite Grand Prix? I don't know. Are we supposed to be unbiased on that? Okay. This is definitely the favorite one that I've got to work. It's such a vibe in the paddock here. The fans are second to none, so I'm so excited to be back.
Yeah, and look, last year I wasn't able to really enjoy this Grand Prix. I was here, but not very well. I wasn't able to really, truly live up to all that the paddock has to offer, so I'm so excited for this. And the season is in the most incredible position as well. We must talk about Charles Leclerc, because I feel under the radar, kind of at the back of everyone's thoughts, Charles Leclerc has been slowly, steadily chipping away, and he's picked up 2 of the most memorable victories we've seen for a while in Monaco and then Monza, and then a win on his birthday week. I mean, he's in brilliant form, and he's just doing it without much fuss as well.
Yeah, I think it's 5 podiums in the last 6 events. He is, in terms of consistency, one of the best drivers out there. You kind of hinted at it, Laura. He kind of was bumbling along, and he was getting consistent 4th, 5th when the Ferrari wasn't really in contention to fight for the Red Bulls and the McLarens. And really, when the opportunities have arisen, they've got on top of the car. The update that they brought to Italy, we've really kind of seen that come through. They understand it. They were the only team in Austin not to bring an upgrade. They had that kind of good baseline set up from the end. And he has made the absolute most of it. And that he says he is a long shot for the Drivers' Championship. And yes, he is. But he's hauled them into the fight for the Constructors' Championship.
And it's really just been a more complete season for him. A lot fewer mistakes than we're used to seeing. Yes, he's had his standout performances. He always does. But we always see 1 or 2 mistakes in races sneak in as he's trying too hard to overcome a car that's maybe a little bit below what he can deliver. We don't having that this year. The car's up to the job. He's delivering on Sundays, and it's been great. The team obviously put a lot of effort and energy into that Monza upgrade, so you expected it to also work at places like Baku. We saw it in Singapore as well. Barring the qualifying issues, they would have been right up there. The pace was there. But to get back to a little bit more of a traditional, proper road course and see that the pace was not just there, but it was the pace of the entire field, That's a great result. I mean, these guys were 1-2. They had a front row lockout here last year. They got a front row or a 1-2 result last time out. Things are going very well for the Ferrari team.
They really are. 48 points now behind McLaren, just 8 behind Red Bull. We really have a three-way fight for that Constructor World Championship. Let's hear then from our most recent race winner, Charles Leclerc from Austin.
I mean, it's very difficult to predict this season race by race. Last weekend went extremely well for us. We were particularly strong in races and in race pace. In qualifying, we struggled a little bit more. However, on the paper, Mexico should be quite a good track for us. But that doesn't mean we'll reproduce the kind of performance we've done in Austin. We just need to focus on ourselves. Focus obviously in FP2 for me. I won't be doing FP1. Ollie will be in the car for FP1, yeah, just try and maximize the result this weekend, and then we'll see where it ends up. But it's obviously a very important part of the season. Only 5 races to go, and there's the constructors' title that is still possible. So we'll give absolutely everything in order to try and take that one.
We move then from Austin, which has a collection of some of the best corners in this sport, to here in Mexico City. What a setting this is as well. And I think I've almost forgot about the altitude and coming into this weekend. And then I checked, not to be an absolute bore, but I checked my stats overnight from various wearables I have. And it said that my oxygen saturation is down to 93%. Because we're here at altitude, 2,240 meters above sea level. Sort of for reference, around 2,000 is where you start to really feel the effects. How are you both doing?
Surprisingly well, actually.
Yeah,
it hasn't really affected me. Yeah,
Really feel anything at all.
maybe it's because we're athletes.
Yeah, you did seem a little breathy on that intro. You're all right there.
So breathy, wasn't I? But look, the 20% air pressure reduction we've got here, it means that we've got Monaco level downforce on those cars, but Monza levels of speed. The other 2 races, of course, that Charles Leclerc has won this season. How difficult is this weekend for the drivers, for the teams, and look, for us mere mortals compared to you 2 athletes over there?
Well, it is a challenge on all fronts. I mean, with the reduction in air density, like you say, reduces the downforce. That's going to take away grip. Add on to the fact that the surface here is traditionally a low grip surface anyway. It's almost a double shot. The cooling for both the engine and the brakes is a huge issue here as well. Again, less dense air doesn't cool the cars as well. We saw Mercedes with George Russell suffer from that a little bit last year. It's going to be something you hear in the Grand Prix, managing tires, managing temperatures. It's just one more thing to worry about at a track that doesn't give a driver a lot of confidence because it is so low grip.
And it's warm, isn't it, in the sun, as we've got a crane. Just a crane? Is that a crane? A fork? What's that?
Forklift. That's a forklift. Yeah.
A forklift. I'm being reliably informed by everyone in my ear. Not a crane. Lawrence, we've got a fair few rookies heading into FP1 as well. Ollie Bearman in at Ferrari, Kimi Antonelli in for Mercedes, Robert Schwartzman in at Sauber, Pato O'Ward in at McLaren, home hero. He's getting so much attention, isn't he? Schwartzman as well, down at Sauber. That's going to be an exciting session for us to take a look at.
Yeah, it's a real good opportunity for the teams to run and assess these young drivers, because they obviously don't get much of an opportunity during the year, and we've got a couple more sprints coming up in Brazil and Qatar. Las Vegas is a tough track as well, so this is probably one of the few races left on the calendar where you can run a young driver when you've got to run 2 of them over the course of the season. So it'd be great to see Kimi Antonelli. I think he obviously didn't get that real opportunity in Monza with that crash. We didn't really get to see what he's got, what it takes. And Robert Schwartzman in the Sauber, you know, that seat's still open. He's not really in the names that we're talking about for that seat, but he's still got a shot to try and prove himself.
For Bearman as well, it's his first time in a Ferrari doing an FP1. He's done all of his FP1 so far in a Haas, but he's raced in the Ferrari in F1. So a funny situation he finds himself in, but he's super excited to step in. It'll be good to see what the likes of Antonelli and Bearman can do, especially for Antonelli, as Lawrence mentioned, Hinch.
Yeah, look, I'm looking at the drivers, these rookies that are coming in for teams that are fighting for something right now. So I'm putting a little more emphasis on how Bearman performs for Ferrari, who have now really got themselves up into that constructors battle, and also what Pato O'Ward does for the McLaren. They're obviously leading the constructors right now. You know, he's got the hometown advantage, also the hometown pressure that comes along, wanting to perform there. But you've got to get the job done, because these drivers are getting valuable information for 2 teams that are really in the thick of this fight.
Red Bull then, they usually do well here with their Honda engine. It looked like they were back to fighting form and really had that car hooked up with Max Verstappen winning that sprint race, it kind of came away from them in the race a little bit. We knew Ferrari would be strong on race pace, and so it proved. This is an unbelievably important weekend for Sergio Perez, isn't it? Whether it's a home race or not for him, at this point in the season, knowing how his season has gone so far, how much pressure is heaped on him here?
Well, it's interesting. You know, with only a handful of races left, it's probably unlikely now that Red Bull's going to make a change. I mean, look, it is Red Bull. With what Liam Lawson did in Austin, if he has another strong result here and Checo struggles, it wouldn't blow my mind if they decided, you know what, to try to salvage this constructors battle, let's throw Liam in the Red Bull for the last 5 rounds. I don't think that's likely, so I think most of the pressure just comes from being the home race. The pressure's been on all season. He openly admitted coming into the weekend, it's not been a good year. He's well aware of it. The point score in the last 13 races is a fraction of what he had in the first 6. He knows that the points need to come, and there's no better place to try to turn it around than right here at home.
And the pressure, though, for him last weekend at turn 1, Lawrence, was something else. He just tried simply too hard to get a result, didn't he? It was agonising for him.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is he knows what he's got to do, but when things are going wrong, I guess it's with anyone, it kind of starts to spiral and you make more mistakes and more mistakes and more mistakes. So I think the fact that he felt like he's turned a corner and he's coming to a state where he's done really well in the past, he's been on the podium twice here, basically led the race briefly, didn't he, before he crashed last year, very briefly. I think if he feels he can get a good result here, that will be really good for his confidence, maybe to give him hope that he can save his seat. But in an interview you're going to see later in the weekend, I'll talk to him about kind of his chances and how tough it's been this year. And he was pretty punchy. He essentially just says, I've got a contract for next year, I'm going to be in the car. Now we know that Red Bull works in very different ways, but I think that approach that he's taken shows that he's kind of trying to put the barriers up a little bit and try and just focus on the job in hand. And whether or not that is possible this weekend, I don't know. But if Liam Lawson keeps delivering performances like that, it's going to be very difficult, isn't it?
We do have that full Sergio Perez interview coming in our pre-race show. For now, though, let's say it from him earlier on in the press conference.
I know I've had a terrible season, a very difficult one. It started really well, but yeah, it's been really, really difficult. And for me, you know, if I get a strong result, it can definitely change my season massively, you know, in terms of feeling, of personal feeling. So I'm really up for it. I think momentum in Formula One is very important, you know, when you just put the car on track and you know that everything is working and you are so further ahead of the people that put the car on track and have a lot of problems. I think it's the same for everyone. But I also know how these sports work, and it's all about your last race. So if I get a good one here, I got a good one in Baku, but it didn't work out. If I get a good one here, then my season can definitely take a U-turn. The most important is that we are able to find this, to feel comfortable with the car, which at the moment we are just not able to unlock the full potential of the car. And we come to the weekends trying a lot of things, different things every weekend. And so it makes just the whole Grand Prix a lot more difficult.
Big weekend then for Sergio Perez. On the other side of the garage, Max Verstappen, at one point it looked like he was going to lose 1 point to Lando Norris, but with that race penalty for Lando Norris, it meant Max Verstappen finished in 3rd place, Lando Norris 4th, 57 points. He now leads. Is this now a commandable cushion for him to take in, or is it still in the balance, Lawrence?
I still think it's in the balance, but it is heading towards being a commanding position. I think it's 11 points now on average, actually no, maybe 12, that Lando's got to get over Max in these last 5 race weekends. And yes, there's a couple of sprint weekends that he can fight back, but I think what we saw in Austin is that everything has got to go right for Lando to make this work, and at the moment it just doesn't feel like he's kind of got the momentum. Max, on the other hand, he can't seem to put a foot wrong. He makes so few, if any, mistakes, and when you've got a driver operating at that level, it's just super impressive, and like it's great to see that, and Lando just can't really do anything about it, no matter how hard he tries.
Yeah. And I think the other problem, right, is we had a couple races where McLaren were the clear pace leaders, and so the job was, yeah, Lando had to go out and win. He did that a few times in a row there, but Max has gotten better, the Red Bull's gotten better, but everyone else has gotten better too. I mean, Ferrari were clearly the best car. When McLaren was the de facto number 1, everybody was excited because a Lando win was always a possibility. Not that it's not now, everything's a possibility in Formula One 2024, but it's certainly not as much of a foregone conclusion as it has been in the last few rounds.
It's going to be the battle, I think, between the two of them until the end of the season. I'm sure Lando Norris is not giving up without a fight. Mike Seymour spoke to him earlier on.
Lando, good to see you. Quite a battle with Max last time out in Austin. Just wondering how you reflect on that now and how will you approach things moving forward?
I've been reviewed. I've probably approached things in a pretty similar way, but slight tweaks here and there. Of course, didn't come out on top in the whole battle, so things always improve, and I think Max is probably the best, and I'll probably say quite confidently, is the best in the world in this style of defense and attacking and those kind of things. So I'm going up against the best in the world, and therefore I got to be at his level. At the minute, I would say I'm not quite at the level I need to be at, and his level. Which is a shame to say, but it's probably the truth. And at the same time, it's an experience for me to learn and progress and try and do better. So it's still a good battle. I still really enjoyed everything that we did last weekend. It was still, a tough, exciting battle that we had on track. But of course, I want to be the one that comes out on top. I believe I rightfully was, but obviously the penalty in the end changed things around. So things will change a little bit. I'll, of course, change my approach in a slight manner, but I don't need to change everything.
Thanks, Lando.
That's a great mentality and a great reaction, I think, from Lando Norris there. And look, it may take a DNF or a pointless finish for Max Verstappen at this point for Lando to really kind of get his grips back into that title fight. But this is a difficult track for reliability, Lawrence, isn't it?
Yeah, and cooling, as Hinch mentioned right at the start of the show, is a key issue. And we're getting towards the end of the season. Teams won't want to be putting like a lot more kind of mileage on various parts of the engine. James Allison was saying, the Mercedes tech boss was saying that actually they don't want to just be putting fresh engine into the cost cap, but that obviously just means the engines that they've got, they're just running a little bit tougher, and it could be what makes the difference here. That said, Red Bull and their reliability this year has been really strong, and there really hasn't been many glimmers this year that there's been any problems. But look, I think the way that Lando has responded is really encouraging. He doesn't seem like he's under pressure or annoyed or getting irritated by the way that it's just not really going his way. And I think that's the best that he can be if he wants to have any chance of beating Max. I think the frustration for them is the Ferraris have jumped both of them, and now rather than being the buffer between McLaren and Red Bull, they're ahead of McLaren, taking away points, so they're the big points that Lando needs at the minute.
And on the other side of the garage, Oscar Piastri was pretty disappointed with a lonely and boring race in P5 last time out. He'll be hoping for more here. Look, we mentioned the altitude. It's affecting people on and off track here in Mexico City. Ruth Buscombe-Divey standing by. Ruth, how is it going to affect those cars out on track this weekend?
Well, here we are in the pit lane, and as you say, altitude is the buzzword of the week. It was upgrades last week. McLaren does have some more this week, but in the Mercedes garage, these two cars look a little bit different. George is running the old floor spec after his crash in turn 19, but those rear wings are the same, and they are big rear wings because we are in Mexico, and as Hinch mentioned, we get Monza-like speeds, even though they're Monaco-like wings. We clocked 350 kph in last year's Q3. So the lower downforce that helps you on the straights hurts you in those corners. And it really impacts tyres here. It is absolutely awful if you're a tyre engineer because you have less grip, which means less cornering. Often you have to play with the pressures, and tyres can have a real tough life. The track temperature as well doesn't help. Because of the altitude, we have the biggest split of track and air of the season. When it's cloudy, you can be 22, 23, and the track will be similar. But the sun comes out, and it will rocket in the space of 10 minutes to 50. But that's not it. Within the 8 races since we've come back to this wonderful track, we have had 4 virtual safety car races, 3 safety car races, and even a red flag race to throw into the strategist piles of things that they have to deal with this week. Oh, and they've changed the DRS zone for this race. So it has been reduced by 75 metres. This plays back into the old racing we used to have here of undercut and overcut racing, because you can't just bank to do it all on the straights. I think that's about it, isn't it? Laura, back to you in the paddock.
Thank you very much, Ruth. So many factors at play, as Ruth just mentioned then, for this weekend, for all of us, but mostly for the teams and the drivers to really think about. Hinch, looking at Mercedes then, inconsistency, I think, pretty much sums up their season. They lurch from brilliance to utter disappointment and frustration and don't seem to have the answers. Last weekend was a real example of that. How are they going to cope here then, where we have a multitude of other factors at play as well?
There's no reason to think well, if I'm being brutally honest. I mean, I think last weekend was almost a summation of their season as a whole. They've been so up and down, not even just event to event like we see from some other teams. It's day to day with no real understanding of how or why. You had the upgrades that they brought, both drivers struggling, both having incidents in the same corner. Russell ending up on the old spec, drives from the back of the grid, back from pit lane.
It's a great drive.
Up into 6th. So maybe we go back. They're not. They're keeping one of the cars on the new spec. They obviously don't have the parts to go back to the full spec on George's car. It's going to be really interesting to see if there is a clear difference between the two here, and maybe, again, another example of a team's updates just not operating on the racetrack the way they were hoping. But the inconsistency, race to race, day to day for this team, it's just hard to predict what they're going to be like, what speed they're going to have any given track.
Yeah, for sure. Just behind us, you can see that the Paddock barbecue is just about to open. And actually, through the crowd there, I don't know if cameraman Steve can find him, Esteban Ocon is picking up a taco or two. You never know who you may see in the food court here in the Mexico City Grand Prix paddock. Okay, speaking of Mercedes, then let's hear the thoughts of both drivers after a disappointing Austin and hopefully a much better Mexico City.
Yeah, I think having reviewed everything as a team, I think we were just sailing too close to the wind, and we know how aggressively you need to set up this era of cars, how low to the ground you need to run them, how stiff you need to run them, and I think clearly, it caught both myself and Lewis out over the weekend. But on the flip side, there was definitely glimmers of really strong performance in there, but we know we need to be more conservative with the setup.
The car was unstable last week, but it was a very bumpy track. This is not a bumpy track, so hopefully on the smoother circuit, maybe we won't have the same problems. But if we don't have the problems we had last week, then yeah, maybe we can be a little bit closer to the front. And it's all a big if, and I'm just hoping for the positive.
All a big if. But this is it, isn't it? Because if Mercedes do find the pace they had at the start of last weekend, that was almost pole in the sprint race, in the sprint qualifying for Lewis Hamilton. Are they still in the fight for the top teams? Are they still in the fight there with the top teams for ultimately poles and wins?
I don't think you can discount them, but I do think they've fallen into that underdog category. I think they've just kind of fallen off the pack of the top three, and effectively they're just rolling the dice every time they come to a race weekend, not really knowing whether or not they're going to be in the mix, whether or not they'll be in the mix for quali and not the race, whether or not they won't be in the mix at all. So I think frustration for both George and Lewis, you can kind of hear it in the tone of their voices really at the minute. They don't really know what to expect. That said, if they do put this car into the narrow window that it seems to operate in, yeah, of course they could be in the mix.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Fernando Alonso is celebrating his 400th Grand Prix weekend here in Mexico City, but not here today. The news from the team, he's not feeling well, but 100% focused on feeling better by tomorrow. I'm absolutely loving the use of the 400 and the Alonso name. Very clever, Aston Martin. They're kind of in a no man's land at the moment in the constructor standings. They're 5th. They probably won't be caught. They probably can't catch Mercedes. It's a lonely position, but one pretty much sums up, I think, the season and where they're sitting. We'll move to Haas in the battle for P6. What a weekend for both Haas, last time out, double points in the sprint weekend, and then points for Nico Hülkenberg. What trajectory are they on? Because I think how the car reacts here will be crucial for us understanding that. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's been a strong track for them in the past. And I mean, last weekend was phenomenal. Both cars scoring in the sprint and, split on upgrade packages for the sprint. Both on the fully upgraded car for the Grand Prix. Both cars in Q3. Magnussen should have been in the points. He kind of got hosed on strategy a little bit. Nico doing a great job as he's been doing all year long. But when you look at that pace compared to their immediate competitors, they're very much on an upward trajectory. Their upgrade package works right out of the box. They can just take information from us and make it even better for here in Mexico City. So I think for that battle in P6 in the midfield there, right now it's kind of on them. I think they're looking strong. Yeah, they're 2 points clear of VCARB, aren't they? Liam Lawson obviously scoring a point for VCARB last time out. I'm going to wind it back to testing. Haas, we're basically saying, don't even look at us. We are P10. It's going to be awful. It's going to be embarrassing. We're back of the grid. Don't even worry. they have surprised themselves, or were they bluffing? I know everyone bluffs at testing, but this is the ultimate bluff, isn't it?
No, they definitely were bluffing. I think Ao Komatsu came into the job new, taking over from Günther Steiner, didn't really want to play it up too much, didn't really know what car he had. The team knew fundamentally they had a good one. They weren't sure if they could make the most out of it. They, for me, are the most exciting team in the midfield at the minute. They've got an upgrade on the car, it's delivering. They've got 2 drivers who are operating at a high level. And P6 looks at best what they can achieve today. And, you know, if they get a good run, who knows, they could even catch Aston Martin.
VCARB will not be letting them get their own way, but obviously they've had a driver change mid-season, but it was a point for Liam Lawson last time out in his first time racing at Circuit of the Americas on a sprint weekend as well, with a grid penalty. It was a mighty performance. Let's hear how he feels ahead of Mexico.
Hey Liam, I'm just interested to know, what did Helmut say to you after that race in Austin? I know you talk to him all the time, but what did he have to say after that particular performance?
He said good job. He said it was a good race, and basically that's basically what I got, which is more or less what, you know, how it's always been. So I know what their expectations are of me. I don't need them to tell me that, honestly. I know what they're expecting me to do in the car, and you know, with the situation that we're in right now, fighting for 6th in the constructors, that's, you know, everybody's goal right now is to get that across the line, and I know that's what they're expecting of me as well.
What an audition, a first audition for Liam Lawson. 1 box checked. Is that the expression? Box ticked for Liam Lawson.
That works.
Yeah. Other side of the garage, Yuki Tsunoda, disappointed with strategy that saw him out the points, then that spin. He's got to try and match his teammate, hasn't he?
Yeah, he does, and it's that much more frustrating when your teammate's doing well, especially the dynamic in that team right now. Pressure's really on Yuki, and you know, you can see here, just getting it wide in turn 1, no grip outside, and it just went from bad to worse. Yes, he didn't have the best strategy, but I also think those mistakes creeping in are just showing those cracks in the game. And with Liam showing up, 60 pace grid penalty from P19, track he's never raced on, first race of the season, into the points. Oh, that's not what you want to see if you're the garage next door. He's killing it.
And especially because it seems that Yuki Tsunoda cannot get a look in at Red Bull, no matter what he does throughout the season. Colapinto also looking for a seat for next season. He's had such an impressive debut so far. How do you think he's going to go this weekend, knowing in a sense that every single race he's putting himself in a shop window?
So just a quick one on Yuki. I know the Honda really pushing hard to get him in a Red Bull. He's never driven a Red Bull car, which is remarkable. So I do think that they do feel that they want to give him a shot. And I think if he's got a shot, if he can cut those mistakes out, it'll be good. If he can't, then it proves that maybe he doesn't have what it takes to get him. But I think it's great that Red Bull are at least considering putting him in. For Frank, I feel for him. Like, talking to him in the TV pen today, he kind of knows that Williams love him, they support him, they want to have him long term, but they can't physically put him in a car. James Vowles tried talking to Sauber Audi, but it seems like they're leaning towards Gabriel Bortoleto if they want to bring youth into the team, and that kind of shuts him out. But you know, it's probably not the end of the world for him to be a reserve driver for a single year last year, and we've seen this year you can get called in at any point. You know, someone might get dropped. Franco's available. He's obviously shown what he can do. So as annoying as it is, I think if he looks at the long game, he's still super young. I still think he's got opportunities. It's just annoying that he's obviously doing such a great job at the minute and he hasn't got a seat next year.
He had quite a humorous response, didn't he, to Esteban Ocon taking that fastest lap from him in the media pen. He said some Frenchman bolted on some new tyres. I'm going to be a tyre strategist if I don't get a seat next year. So clearly he's, you know, finding his feet in Formula One and getting his elbows out in terms of what they say off track as well as what they do on track. Alpine, just a couple of points then behind Williams. That fight's also on. What can Alpine do here?
Well, they finished in the points last year with Ocon in 10th place, got that point. The upgrades had a lot of potential. We only had them on Gasly's car in Circuit of the Americas. Great qualifying effort. The race really came unraveled. You know, there was mistakes. There was a bad pit stop. So the full potential wasn't shown. Both cars have the upgrades here in Mexico. So based on what we saw in Austin, yeah, I think there's potential to get back in the mix for some points.
Yeah, qualifying was mighty impressive for Alpine. We'll see what they can do here. One other seat, of course, that's still up for grabs. It's the Sauber seat. Earlier on, Lawrence spoke to Valtteri Bottas about it.
And just looking ahead to your future as well, have you had a chance to chat to Mattia this week?
We are in almost daily basis touch with Mattia. Sometimes about technical stuff, sometimes about future. But yeah, I mean, we've pretty well agreed everything in terms of the terms and stuff like that, and now it's just the ball is in their camp. So yeah, I'll keep waiting and doing my job.
Well, the music's been turned up a notch in this paddock. The barbecue now in full swing. Quite the party ahead. For Valtteri Bottas, though, he is going to be looking to fight his way into that second Sauber seat. He's up against Gabriel Bortoleto by all sources, that being Lawrence Barretto. Mattia Binotto saying he'd make a choice by mid-November. Do you go for experience or do you go for the young rookie who is proving himself in the feeder series? Time will tell. Let's take a look at the schedule here at the Mexico City Grand Prix. How things are shaping up heading into free practice Friday. It's an ordinary Grand Prix weekend, so we do have 2 practice sessions to bring you. FP1 building up at 12:15. FP2, a 90-minute session, don't forget, building up to that at 3:45. 11:15 for FP3. Into qualifying at 2:30. Our pre-race show starting at 1 p.m. and the race start here at 2 p.m. for a 71-lap Mexico City Grand Prix. I cannot wait to see, firstly, how this weekend pans out. Secondly, the atmosphere in El Stadio over there. It's going to be electric. We've got so much at stake, so many storylines that are just being weaved through the narrative of the final part of this season. What are you both looking forward to, and what are your predictions, please?
I'm looking forward to whether Lando can take the fight to Max. I still think it's bang wide open. I love the mood that Lando's come in this weekend, but I want to see whether Ferrari can replicate the form they showed last year here and kind of carry that form that they got in Austin.
Prediction?
I think it's going to be Ferrari 1-2 on Sunday.
Again?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Who's P3 then?
Lando, because I still think that, I feel like he's going to nick something off Max. Probably not as many as he would like, but that's what I think.
I like the Ferrari 1-2. They were strong here last year. They were strong last week. Carlos is really in good form. We saw it great form at Circuit of the Americas. Charles obviously winning the race, fantastic form. So I do predict them, hopefully, to be strong here. And yeah, actually, I don't hate Lando P3. I don't hate it. But again, Max is just kind of flawless. Like there's no issues with his game right now. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's still strong as always. But I'm just looking forward to turn 1. Turn 1 here is always fun. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I don't hate a Ferrari 1-2 either. I think you're onto a good thing.
You're agreeing. We're all
I might
agreeing.
be agreeing
We're all
with
in
you for
agreement.
once. So we agree with Lawrence Barretto. That's the first time for everything. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to you. Thanks to Ruth as well. Thanks to Mike for asking some of the questions today in the media pen as well. Thanks to all of you for watching. We've got free practice Friday to come, and this, the Mexico City Grand Prix. You don't want to miss a second. We will see you tomorrow.
Welcome to the Mexico City Grand Prix. The crowd are expectant.
This is Mexico City.
And the Grand Prix is go! It is high speed, it is high intensity. Hamilton going deep to the inside, fights his way by.
The fans are so passionate.
Contact once again, and around goes Tsunoda. Max Verstappen wins the Mexico City Grand Prix.